There's tips I looked up as a youngin' in terms of like actual sex that I used in my adult life.
Because it's such a fascinating mathematical equation that men feel the pressure to perform in the bedroom, but then they also are not encouraged to go learn anywhere.
Yeah. Men and their egos.
Right?
Jeez.
Thank you for my social clip.
Lovers and friends. I'ma take you on a trip, baby. I don't pretend. I say.
Even though a lot of men, I would say, know that they're probably not as good as they want to be, they find it really difficult to admit that and to look for help.
It was very much an ego thing for him, but he never really put emphasis on pushing himself to what would actually make me orgasm and have a good time. And when I shared with him that a vibrator would be really helpful for clitoral stimulation while penetration is occurring, he actually wanted the vibrator to be flat and big.
A lot of men just feel that they don't have to do the work. They just feel that a woman will come educated with what she needs, and I don't necessarily have to do anything. I can just receive.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how important is sex to you?
8.3. 9?
Oh, it's 10.
All right, how confident are you that you know what women want sexually?
-10. 6?
10. 8. 9.
What's your favorite sex ed book?
I don't know one. Damn, I haven't really read any.
Definitely not the Bible. Honestly, I don't know. I've never read a sex ed book before. I don't really read books. Ooh, I don't know. I don't have one. Sex ed book?
I'm not applicable. Never read one. All self-taught. I'm from the streets, baby. That's a tough one because I haven't read any. So.
I mean, I don't really read a lot of books about that.
What's your favorite sex educator or sex education site?
XNXXX.com. I don't think I've really studied it out. I think I just kind of learned through experience and talking to my partner.
Oh, perfect. Pornhub. Don't have one.
Tim!
Oh my God. Wow.
Okay, I need to know what that wow's about.
It's good to see you.
Oh, that was really great because we've been talking for half an hour.
I know.
But you are such a pro on camera that you pretended that this just happened.
No, it's like they should know that I'm happy to see you. You know what I'm saying? You know I'm happy to see you, but like the wow was like, hey, look, we're here. This is nice.
I think we have the weirdest friendship.
Why's that?
I think me, you, and Rick all have weird friendships. Like I messaged Rick and I was like, hey, you know, I only reach out for life events or work. Like, you're either invited to my wedding or I need you to come on my podcast.
I mean, for me, that's not weird because that's most of my friendships.
And also you and I are similarly horny people.
Yeah. I'm a very horny boy, yeah.
So I'm interested to know about this. So if you, first and foremost, I think I know the answer to this question, but when was your first sexual experience?
Yeah, well, I think when I first discovered just even like masturbating, I was just, mind is blown. I was on a website called jackinworld.com that would give you different tips on different ways to masturbate.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What are some of the tips?
Well, it was like crazy shit. It was like just different things you could do to experience different sensations. One was like jag off with like a banana peel. Cause like,
and did you?
Yeah. And it wasn't something I did regularly, but it was just shit I was trying out, right?
Yeah.
Cause it was like the inside kind of gives you like natural lube, and then you could just bust into the peel and throw it away. You know what I'm saying? But like the little like peely rinds get caught on your dick and stuff. It's not as clean as they explain it to be, right? But so I was on this website, jackinworld.com. So naturally,
does it give porn plus tips or just tips?
No, it's just tips.
That's actually pretty fascinating. I think that a lot of people are so fascinated by the basics.
Yeah.
That they just stick with that. So the fact that you invited variety into your life.
I was fucking anywhere my dick fit, I was inserting myself when my parents were gone. And like, and I was like, you know, any types of different like lubrication I could find. You know, I learned the hard way that I shouldn't use toothpaste. It was like all types of shit when I'm like 14, 13, trying to be like, what feels good, what doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
So naturally, when I got into a relationship with someone who was equally horny as me, I was looking up tips on how to go down on a girl online. And I was like looking up tips on. Yeah.
This is a very fascinating story. I feel like I've talked to you about your sex life many times before, but this is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah, we've never talked about this. I actually haven't really even told this story in a whole lot of like places, I don't think. I was like looking up tips because I remember when we first tried to kind of experiment with going down on each other, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, right? I was like, I think I just didn't go low enough. I think I just stayed in the pubes for like, I just was very puby. As the more we tried it out, the more I was like Googling tips and after school.
I need to ask about this. I am really blown away because I think that a lot of heterosexual men in particular, they're discouraged from educating themselves sexually. I think there's so much pressure. First of all, there's so much pressure for your penis to do all the things.
Yeah.
So you're like, my dick should be able to
last
put out
an
fires,
hour
last hours, give 40 different orgasms, and like
feed 400 people.
Exactly.
Like,
So then you get so wrapped up in that, it feels embarrassing or shameful to admit that you need help in any other area. So I feel there's a lot of ego. And I know this specifically as someone who studies sex. I very rarely go to classes or workshops
right.
where there are
men there?
Any straight men. There's men there. There's usually gay men there, or bisexual men there.
Well, I was always a very inquisitive dude. I feel like maybe because I was an only child and I was just really curious about stuff, I wasn't talking to anybody about it. I'll tell you this. I just told this story on me and David's podcast. One way I learned about sex so early on is I was watching Married with Children with my dad, right? We used to watch the show all the time as a little kid, but of course I didn't understand any of the sexual jokes, right? So there's one episode specifically where Al Bundy was impotent, right? He couldn't get it up, so they're making all these like limp dick jokes that I just didn't understand. So then I looked up the word impotent in the dictionary. My parents had a big ass dictionary. I looked up impotent and it was like, oh, when a man can't get an erection for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, erection, what's that? I looked up erection. And then, oh, when a man blah, blah, blah for sexual intercourse. I was like, oh, intercourse, what's that? So then I just, was like this like rabbit hole of the technical shit, right? And that's where I really started like learning how things worked. And I just felt like, why not?
Are you shocked at my shockness?
At me actually willing to research and stuff?
Yes.
I wouldn't say I'm shocked, but like I'm intrigued at the points you're making because it makes sense. Because a lot of people and dudes specifically, there is this whole thing where it's like you're either good at fucking or you're not. No one ever really talks about getting help. You know what I'm saying? I think if anything, you talk to your boys about it, but when you talk to your boys, you're never really like locker room talk is never like, yo, how can I improve myself? It's I'm bragging about what I have done. All right. So then it's all ego in the locker room. And even when I was in college, so I took human sexuality in college and like women's studies and stuff. And even like you said, a lot of people I feel are embarrassed to just have like a matter of fact conversation about it.
Yes.
Cause I was in this human sexuality class and I told a story about, like how I like came too fast, blah, blah, blah. Or it was either how I came too fast or I went soft or something like that. And a couple people in the class were like, oh my God, I can't believe you told that story. And I'm like, why? Yeah. It's like, it happens to everybody. Like it really, like, why? You know what I'm saying? People are like shocked. But I'm like, what are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? Are we not trying to learn, like have the conversation?
Yes, exactly. The fact that you even took a human sexuality class is fascinating. Okay, I don't want to fast forward because to me, this is already interesting. So at a young age, you were already, before you even started to have partnered play at all, you were an explorative sexual person. Yeah. Like you were looking up different ways to do yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you ever use shower heads?
Oh, okay. Actually, yeah, because
Can you tell me the various ways that you masturbated as a young boy?
I'll tell you what I ended up. I'll tell you about my first nut ever. So what I was doing when I was younger is when certain shower heads had like a more of like a spread out, because it wasn't like a focused like powerful stream, but when it had like a spread out, it was nice in a way that was never gonna make me like actually come, but it was a nice like almost like, man, if you could describe the difference between like getting head and actual penetration, because head is like amazing, right? Like it's such a great feeling, but when you actually like want to come, it's like, you need some hand action in there. You need something a little more like forceful, I guess, right?
Yes.
So it's like the shower head for me was like such a great like, oh, this is like
So some form of foreplay.
yeah, like a little foreplay on myself before the hand or the couch came
Even
out.
that's really nice that you did that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I just
So you've experimented with sensations with the goal not always being ejaculation.
yeah. I mean, to this day, if I come across a shower head with that stream, I'm like, let me get some of this right now.
That was actually, it's fascinating about your story because I don't think that I had the awareness to start looking and researching sex until 19.
Oh, word?
I think up until then, everything was just I stumbled upon it or I saw it in a movie or I read about it in a fiction book. And those were not really reliable sources for like things that actually worked.
Okay.
So I just remember I did a lot of foolishness, a lot of bullshit. And then when I turned 19, I was like, I started to actually read and research and I was like, wow, there's better ways out there.
What were you doing?
I fucking carrots, really.
Oh, okay, like movies.
Like
movie shit.
I would not even recount. I did some very, very despicable things.
I'm there with
when
you.
attempting to figure it out.
Yeah.
But that's because I don't know if it was embarrassment or if it was shame or just even like a lack of awareness that there was spaces you could go and learn. That's why I'm so fascinated by the fact that you were like, nah, there are probably people who have figured this out. Let me learn from them.
Yeah, you know what? I think I was just being an only child, and then the internet was like, oh, so many different things and ways to figure out how to do stuff to my dick.
So here's where we're at. From a very young age, you were aware that there were resources that could make you a better lover. First for you. Now, let's fast forward. You start getting into partnered play.
Yeah. When I was 15, I mean, it feels weird to say this, but when I was 15, that's all we did for like a year, was just go down on each other, right? So I was looking up tips and, you know, we were learning from each other.
Is it because you were bad and she told you were bad, or you were like, oh, I'm already aware based on...
I just knew we were new.
Yeah.
I think we were both looking up things to do and learning from each other. Well, here's what's funny, right? Is when I was looking up tips on how to go down on her and improve my skills, like I'm talking about this website I was on had like a whole map of just like the layout of a woman's whole, like, you know, vaginal, vulvational situation.
How old were you?
Like 15.
And so were you aware of the clitoris before you even engaged with a vulva at all?
I mean, I think we've heard, you know, I'd heard about a clitoris before that, just from movies and stuff, but like from going on the website.
That's actually pretty fascinating because we're on the same age. And I feel like that was not a part of the pop culture zeitgeist at the time.
Like talking about clits and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not. But I learned from that website where it was at, where the layout was, you know what I'm saying? The whole foundation and the blueprints.
I think the education provides a foundation, like not dissimilar from cooking, right? Just because I went to a culinary school doesn't mean I'm going to make the best spaghetti for you. Right. Because I still got to know what your palate, what your needs are. But I have the bare basics foundation.
For
and
sure.
Because I have that, I'm adaptable. You know what I mean? Like you knowing the different parts of the vulva and where things are and different techniques allows for you to be with a partner and course correct very rapidly.
Yeah, there's tips I looked up as a youngin' in terms of like actual sex that I used in my adult life. You know what I'm saying? Like shit I looked up when I was like, I don't know, 17, 18 that I used forever.
You know I'm gonna ask what these tips are.
Of course. Just, you know, so like I'm not a big dude, you know. So one of my go-tos from the jump was like, you know, put her legs on your shoulders so you could just penetrate a little more deeper, and then you get like little clit stimulation just from your pelvises pressing on each other.
Here's why I'm blown away by this, because I think that there is such an ego that societally men, I don't know how to say it, adapt or adopt.
Yeah.
And as a result, like wouldn't even just be too ashamed to even Google that.
Yeah.
Like when you searched up tips for small dicks, big performances, did you clear the search history afterwards? Were you like...
Nah, I mean, I was the only child, you know, and like, so I didn't care. I don't remember doing that. I was also, you know, I was always just like a people pleaser, you know, because I'm a Pisces, you know, so...
No, let me not do that. I'm better than that eye roll. I'm better than that.
That was
Tell me more. Tell me how your sign contributes to your self-awareness.
No, I said that just to get that eye roll out of you. But I am a people pleaser. You know, I care. I like to make people happy, you know, in all aspects of my life, right? So it's like, and that was just something I naturally wanted to do. If I was like, I wanted to make sure that everybody was having an enjoyable experience. You know what I'm saying? You know, oh, I'll tell you this is about to blow your mind. One of the first times in my life that I like just couldn't get it up for a girl. And I was so bothered by this. I talked to my dad about it. And my dad was like, you know, it happens. Just make sure you don't dwell on it too much because it's gonna like mess you up the next time. You just gotta remember to relax and like, don't get into your head too much about it. And
did you look that up too?
What, like, going soft?
Yeah.
I think, you know what I did do is look up different foods to eat to keep your blood flow better for that. Yeah.
An evolved man. Because did you ever have your friends, your dude friends, ask you for advice? Because it sounds like this is an area of yours that you were interested in. You took human sexuality courses.
Yeah.
You researched from a young age. You were sexually active fairly young. You were before the average. Is there a level of acknowledgement of like, oh shit, Tim might know more.
Yeah,
so let me.
Not that I can think of. It's always either shared. Here's the thing. It's either shared brag stories or shared embarrassing stories. And then you give each other advice through the embarrassing stories as friends, but I don't think it's ever been a dude, let me get your advice. You know?
Like you seem like you're good at this. Can you help me?
Yeah. Let's see. In my life, has anybody ever has like a friend ever came up to me for sexual advice? Nah, not that I can say. Men and their egos.
Right.
Jeez.
Thank you for my social clip. All right. So you didn't have an ego when it came to researching. What about...
Also, hey, if you're having trouble with erectile dysfunction, BlueChew.com, use promo code TIM for your first month free.
I'm Hims and Hers. Sorry. So you can
cut
also
that.
go to Hims and Hers. I also did Roman, so you could go to Roman. Shit, I did Giddy as well too. So try that shit out.
Try them all out.
Lots of different ways to get hard. What about when it came to asking your partner? Because this is a huge hurdle wherein a lot of women feel uncomfortable expressing their desires and needs to their partner because there isn't an inherent curiosity, which makes it very easy to come forth and be like, hey, licking my pubes is really not the zone.
I was always, well, you know what? I think in the beginning, I was so open to learning, right? And then I'll tell you this, if we talk about male ego, right? Or just ego in general. Yeah, in the beginning, I was so curious and so eager to learn. I was asking questions. I was looking up tips. And I think when I got to a point where I felt like I was good at it, then I wasn't asking anymore. But I was always open if someone was like, no, that's a little too hard for me. Like, I prefer this.
But you stopped leading with curiosity. You started leading with like, here's the show.
Yeah, here, let me show you what I got. This I'm about to, check this out, right?
I have this debate all the time with my brother-in-law because he has so much ego. Being is young, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I don't think you're good in bed because of that. I can't just say I'd have great sex with you. Mm-hmm. Like there'd be a learning curve that I would have to take on. And the person who acknowledges the learning curve to me is the better lover than the person who's like, point blank period, I'm a great lover.
Yeah, you know, and I think that might come from, I mean, look, I think I learned a lot just through my whole phase as well in terms of learning that like everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might be really good with one person when you're in a relationship, but then, you know, you hook up with someone else and they're completely different, you know, like different things like aren't comfortable or it might hurt or they like, you know, less pressure here or whatever, you know? And I think just from hooking up from different people in the past is where what helped me figure that out.
Because I would say books helped me figure that out. Like I have this running joke with Rick, right? Mm-hmm. That I'm like, I got to give you a hand job one day because I feel really good about my game. Right. But I only feel good because I have read books and I know several different techniques.
For hand jobs?
Yes. So I know what works for Jared. I know what works for my husband. But like, if I got to someone else and that didn't work, I'm like, cool, let's go with the Grand Slam, right? Like I have other techniques that I have like looked into so I have a framework for how to be adaptable in the moment. So that's where I'm like, the curiosity is there, but the curiosity mixed with an educational background and a foundational understanding of like the anatomy of the penis too.
Right.
So even if you are like if you have a really sensitive head, I'm like, okay, cool. Let me utilize the skin more, or let me change up my stroke, or let me put one hand at the base to add more pressure. So you've got a way of troubleshooting, which I don't think that you can get through experience if you have really communicative partners. But I feel like without the education, I don't know how you get there.
Yeah, man, I'm all for the education, you know?
Well, I want to hear about taking a human sexuality and gender studies course in college.
Sure. When I took human sexuality, I think I had already been doing advice videos on YouTube. And I was like, I'm giving advice just off of my own personal experience. Why not learn some book stuff, right? And then as far as women's studies, I was like, I would like to learn things that I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And also, and not gonna lie, in my head, I was like, there's probably gonna be so many women in this class. And there were. It's like me and like 3 guys. It was amazing.
In both classes?
Human sexuality was definitely more women than men, but women's studies was like probably like 20 girls and 3 guys, you know? And I always tell people one of the craziest weeks, well, not crazy, but just kind of like as a young, thirsty boy, but also like I was keeping shit professional because I'm in class, right? We had a whole like week where we were just talking about masturbation, and it was in like the textbook and everything. And like, it was a big emphasis on you really have to know how to pleasure yourself before you can have someone else pleasure you, that type of thing, right? So for this women's studies class, we would do the classes on Tuesday, and then Thursdays were groups. And so we would get into these groups. And so it was like me and like 5 girls in this circle, and the goal was like, okay, everyone talk about your first masturbation experience and how you learned about it. And I'm like sharing my story, and I'm listening to their stories, trying to be like, oh, okay, cool, very like professional. But in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is so hot. But I had to just, yeah.
Did you learn things in that class that made you a better lover?
Let me think. Oh, I tell you what I learned that one of the few things I actually retained from college is this fact right here. Because they brought in somebody to answer all of our like taboo questions, right, for this human sexuality class. And someone was like, hey man, can we get pregnant from pre-cum or not? And this guy was like, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but look, here's how it happens, and he told us. And have you talked about this before? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something I took with me forever.
But I'm not going to stop you from talking about it.
Oh, sure, let's talk about it, right? Where it's like, and he told us that, the only time pre-cum can get someone pregnant is when there is sperm left over in the urethra from the previous session.
Yes.
And you don't pee to clear it out.
Yes. When the bladder is full, it empties through the penile urethra and out of the end of the penis. Urine, as one may guess, is very acidic. This is important to note because sperm don't like acid. So after a male urinates, the urethra/ejaculation duct is poisonous to sperm. So when a man becomes aroused, the body says, oh, no, but what about our precious sperm? How will they survive? And then the seminal vessel and prostate come to the rescue and release an alkaline fluid mixed with mucus and water and other gelatin-like substances that make the tube safe for sperm to travel through. This, ladies and gentlemen, is pre-cum. And no, there is no sperm in it. But going back to what I said about sperm being kind of like sand, there is a possibility there is some sperm from a previous ejaculation hanging around in the tube that the pre-cum picks up as it tries to clean out the area. This is especially true if the male has not urinated between orgasms. Fascinatingly enough, if I tell someone I talk about sex for a living, women will ask a practical question and a guy will be like, where'd you go to school? How many hours have you accumulated? What makes you an expert? But Jared, though, he specifically sought me out to have sex with me.
Oh, to see what you were all about? Or
to
what?
Learn so he could be better for other people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was like, wow, I get to like have sex with a sex educator and then I'll get great tips from her. Damn. And then I'll be able to move on and have great sex with other people. And so he approached our relationship with like a curiosity He was also like experimentative and receptive. Like he was receptive, not even just in words. I always describe like, because there was a time when I was looking for a fuck buddy. And so I was making out with tons of dudes and I had a bunch of dudes go down on me. And the reason why I was like, oh, Jared's my fuck buddy is I remember when he was fingering me, I looked at his face and it was like a painter. You know what I mean? Like
in real life.
He was like a painter in flow, like working with the canvas, like not working on the canvas.
Oh, you're not. Oh, I was gonna say it was like a painter. Like he had gunk all over his face. No.
I mean that too, but it was more like like I am feeling in the moment and I'm experiencing the moment and I'm learning as I go. And that was of course, backed up with questions, but it was a curiosity that went deeper than the verbal. It was like I'm genuinely listening to how your body responds.
That's dope.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, cool. Like this is the person that I want to have sex with.
Man, I'll tell you what. Like you just made me remember that. Like. So me being someone who was always talking about like my dick and talking about sexual stuff on YouTube, when I was like host stage and just hooking up, it kind of like messed me up because while he was trying to fuck you for tips, girls just assumed that my sex was gonna be fire. Yeah. When I was just like randomly hooking up, I wasn't really just trying to go down on everybody. You know what I'm saying? I was like, yeah.
So it was about effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Capability.
Capability's there, but you're not always, I'm not trying to effort everybody.
Right.
You know? I can F everybody. I'm not efforting everybody though.
As time has gone, because I told the story about Jared, but in saying that, I don't know if he went on websites or even reads books on his own, which is something that I did, but I also do it for a living and get paid to do it. So I'm incentivized in a different way to learn about it. But it is fascinating because we work together, and whenever he has edited projects of mine that are about anatomy or that are about, like we did an entire thing about female orgasm for Playboy. And Jared got so much better at fingering after that.
Interesting.
We also did this project with Laylo that was called 7 Days of Orgasm where we like talked about the A-spot. And after that, that was the first time I started being able to experience A-spot stimulation.
What's A-spot, your butt?
A-spot is like the anterior fornix. So it's basically deep penetration. So it's past the G-spot.
Okay.
A couple inches up, but then not the cervix. So a fornix is like an archway. Like think of like the Arc de Triomphe.
Okay, yes.
So it's like an archway around the cervix.
Interesting.
So I am like, do you not see the benefit
of
continuing to learn and do that on your own? Yeah. So after you took this human sexuality course and you had this base frame rate of looking things up, how did you engage with sex education as you got older?
Like the obvious answer was, once I because I've been with Chia for like 10 years, right? I just really kept learning about her, asking what she likes, what she doesn't like, and just kind of learning my partner, you know what I'm saying? But as far as like actual education, I mean, I think for me, a lot of it was kind of...
Are you guilty of feeling like the work is done?
What do you mean?
Like, oh, I learned all I had to learn about sex. I learned the basics. So now I don't have to like continue my education in a formal way.
Well, kind of, because, I feel like because I've been with her for so long, you kind of begin to feel like I know how this works, right? I know what gets the job done. I know what I need to do. But no, not so much as I was a youngin', you know?
I hope I sparked this curiosity back in you because I think it's important. I still learn a lot.
Yeah.
And I think traditionally a lot of men think the way that I get good is through experience and repetition.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you try something new when it's never even occurred to you to do that before? What you were able to do at a young age, I feel like a lot of people haven't done at a big age.
Right.
Which is allow their curiosity to humble them and allow yourself to even acknowledge that like, hey, I might not know everything. What do you think the benefit for you was in taking a traditional sex education route?
The benefit for me was I was always I always felt like ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, and as far as a man, there's a lot of pressure on you to perform sexually, right? Even like in society, it's like the dude has to do this and this. Like the dude has to make the girl come or else you failed, right?
Right.
So it's like, I mean, I think that was kind of one of my motivators to really know what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? And like yeah, everybody's different, but of course, like the more knowledgeable you are and the more you can kind of learn about how people are different and like, and just how things work, it just makes you not only more skilled, but it gives you more confidence. Or I always say like, look, when I walk into the room, a girl's like not necessarily gonna be like, you know what? I wanna fuck that guy. But give me like 10 minutes next to the chips and she's like, I might fuck this guy. So it's like confidence is such a big part of how you do things in your life.
You know what I always say though? Confidence is not a choice, it's a result. Right? Like I can't be confident at golf if I don't have the basic skills.
And that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So it's like, you know, sex is such a crazy, like layered, there's like so much that can go on and so much that goes on with different people. And for me, just, it was something that I knew I wanted to be better at, even from a young age. Like I wanted to know what I was doing. And I think just like the fact that I was like, went out of my way to really research and know some things made me better. And it just, you know, made me feel better about what I was doing, you know?
Yes, because it's such a fascinating mathematical equation that men feel the pressure to perform in the bedroom and they feel this insurmountable pressure to be able to make women orgasm multiple times. Yeah. But then they also are not encouraged to go learn anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's discouraged almost, and you're looked down upon. Like I'm thinking of a particular person who lived, we know him, but he lives with multiple dudes. Okay. And I gave him a book about how to please a woman, and he was like, what if my friends stumbled across this book in my room? How am I supposed to explain that?
I mean, it's definitely funny, but look, if you're around the homies and you find a book that says how to please a woman, yes, it's funny. But also it's like me personally, I would be able to laugh at the homies, but also be like, I learned some shit in here and put people on. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, it's a funny scenario.
Why is it funny though?
it just is.
But what's the comedy behind wanting to be exceptional at something and putting the work behind it?
I think it just implies that you're whack at it, right? And I think that's...
But isn't that a given?
That's what I'm saying.
It's obvious. I'm gonna be whack at building a deck. I've never done that shit before.
Right. And that's the conundrum, Shannon Boudram. It's like we're expected to be good, but then we are clowned if we wanna be better. That's why so many dudes are whack. Specifically tall dudes. I say go for a short man, ladies, because we don't have to, like, we don't have those expectations on us. You know what I'm saying? Tall dudes, they're expected to like not only have huge dicks, but also be amazing at sex from the jump. They're not gonna wanna learn, they're gonna feel stupid. Short dudes, I don't have those expectations on me. I'm learned. So usually, short dude's gonna lay it down.
Let's end with that. Thanks, Tim. Sounds great. Funny enough, one of my community members said a similar thing in my voicemails for this episode.
The best sex that I've had with straight men is when they are maybe not as stereotypically attractive, and so they put in work. They care, they have self-awareness, more curious, more attentive.
So I don't know, maybe there's some truth to it. Oh, also, by the way, if you want to contribute to Lovers and Friends, make sure you follow me on Instagram and save this phone number where you can call in and leave a voicemail. So it's 323-375-4797. Also, make sure you follow Tim on YouTube and Instagram by searching for Tim Chantarangsu and listen to his huge hit podcast, No Chasers, wherever you are listening to this podcast. A bunch of links will be listed in the show notes. Next, I wanted to get a male sex expert who traditionally works with straight men to share his take on the matter. And let me tell you, finding this kind of person was not easy. For starters, a lot of male sex educators abandoned their accounts years ago, and a lot more of them were the kind of people that I couldn't see a lot of the men that I know feeling comfortable working with. A few that did seem kind of cool, I pre-interviewed only to discover that they themselves were self-taught coaches who never read a single book in their damn lives. Now, there's actually this other guy who I've seen make countless men's sex tips videos over the years. And when I DM'd him, he said, I'm out of that business altogether. And now I help women find love. And I wonder why he made that switch. All that to be said, 3 days later, and finally, I stumbled upon men's sex coach Alex Grendy. And in light of my experience, I had to ask, Alex, what is your life like as a sex educator who focuses on people with penises?
It's my passion. It's my deepest purpose in life. So for me, it's exactly what I'm meant to be doing. It's one of my favorite parts is when I meet someone new and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm just like, "I'm a men's sex coach." They're like, "Wait, what?" And there's either like this really keen interest, like, "Oh, wow, that's so interesting. What is that like?" And then there's other people who just kind of tighten up, and especially for men who are like immediately, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm fine. I'm fine." You know? And I'm like, "Come on, man. Like, it's okay." I don't say that out loud, but I know those are the men who need
Well,
it the
then
most.
it's also too like, who does that? I would never hear, "Oh, I have a laundromat business. I don't need a laundromat.
Yeah.
My washer and dryer works fine." I didn't ask. You asked me what I did. I answered your question. That's weird, right?
It's because sex is, even just hearing the word for some people, there's so much shame, that they just don't know how to handle it.
Can you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Yes, I'm Alex Grendy. I'm a men's sex coach, and I focus on helping men overcome performance anxiety. But I learned about sex and the importance of sex in a relationship probably younger than I should have. But that also gave me the confidence to talk about sex and educate about sex from a really, really young age. So naturally, I was also one of the first people to kind of try everything. So even though I was this person who had a lot of sex and had a ton of sexual experiences, I still wasn't comfortable having sex. So I experienced all the performance anxiety and pressure of being a man, and especially like in high school, trying to please women and perform. But to circle back a little bit, I went on a kind of a self-development journey that led me down various roads and ancient practices, and I learned about semen retention and Taoism, and that really sparked my interest, like, oh, okay, maybe there is this way to learn more about sex and become a better lover. And that's when that first kind of came into my field, because for the last 10 years I was kind of just medicating with marijuana and alcohol. That was how I kind of got through sex. And then I was like, okay, I went from book to book, kind of digging deeper, trying to learn these practices on my own and having a little bit of success, but really stumbling along the way. And it wasn't until a friend of mine was like, "You should be a sex coach." And then I was just like, okay, I need to talk to every single sex coach. I need to know what they're teaching, what this is all about. And that's what I did. I worked with everyone I could find, and I worked with like 5 coaches at a time. And I was just so blown away. Even with my first training, that was like 4 weeks. I was just, I thought I knew something about sex and I had all these sexual experiences. And as soon as I actually got some coaching, I realized I knew nothing. And that was the moment for me when I was like, I've had all of these experiences, threesomes, so many partners. If I don't know anything about sex, what about someone who's only had sex with 1 or 2 people? And I just felt like, wow, this is something I need to share with all men that I possibly can help. And since then, it has become my mission.
It is so fascinating because your story, one, is so similar to the Netflix TV show Sex Education. It sounds like it was based off of your life.
It resonates deeply.
And secondly, it's so similar to my story, in that, in essence, I had multiple partners, a deep passion for sex, but awful sexual experiences.
Well, I think that's the confusing part. At least it was for me, right? You're told you're supposed to want sex all the time as a man. Men are these horny guys who are ready to have sex at any moment and ready to perform. And also growing up, you learn, or at least I learned, that if the man didn't come, then it doesn't count. right? So we wanted to be able to pleasure someone during sex and be a good partner. There was also the pressure where if you didn't have an ejaculation, maybe your partner would be very offended. It's really confusing. Well, what should I do? Just try as hard as I can to ejaculate, or should I try to please her? And we have the same messaging as women that this is about the man. And something I just wanted to go back to, because I think a lot of women don't understand, is that a lot of time when men come or ejaculate prematurely or before they would like to, whether it's in 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I think women automatically assume that, oh, well, he ejaculated, so he's happy. But most of the men in those situations don't enjoy that orgasm and ejaculation at all. It's actually a very shameful moment, and sometimes they actually don't feel any pleasure at all. 99% of the men who come to me are so disconnected from their body and have can't even conceive the concept of using other body parts other than their genitals to experience pleasure.
Do you think that there is a huge gap or barrier or something that just prevents the majority of men from being like, oh, I can learn about this somewhere and I'm going to invest my time in doing that?
Yeah, I do. The barrier is quite simple, I think. It's strictly ego. And they're thinking, well, if I'm seeking help, that means I'm bad at it. And if I'm bad at it, I'm not a man. And if I'm not a man, then I'm nothing.
Tell me why men of all capabilities, of all sizes and shapes and backgrounds need a sex coach, and what you get when you work with a sex coach.
Yeah, for men specifically, we have all these ideas, like sex is very important to us, but we don't realize how disconnected we are to it and how this is affecting different areas of our lives. So once you do kind of become aware of this fact and you start to tap into your pleasure potential, start to really feel your highest confidence as a man, it doesn't just impact your sex life, it impacts every single aspect of your life.
What are some of the things that a sex coach can teach you?
Number one would be reducing anxiety and starting to feel comfortable in your body, because these men are so used to being in a stress response all the time in their lives that they've never really tapped into their pleasure. So like we spoke about before, being able to feel pleasure outside of just your genitals, and being able to now enjoy every part of the sexual experience, not just ejaculation. And not to mention, things like experience non-ejaculatory orgasms, be able to be in control of how long you last so you can really pleasure your partner. I also teach men about how to pleasure a woman and how to support women. And the final kind of part of that is integrating those things into your life. Once you've become confident in who you are as a man, once you've become confident in your ability to please and be a loving partner, now that taking that into your life.
Can you speak a little bit to learning how to please a woman?
Men have no idea what women actually want. They think they might, but there is a huge gap and I think part of that has to do with ego. Men want to believe that they know how to pleasure each woman. They don't want to communicate. They don't want to ask. They don't want to learn about their partners. They want to just be able to say, oh, I know, and I'm going to do it. It's like there's a lot of things that men can do to really hurt women, when they're trying to please them, and do things that can really ruin the mood. So I think it's so important to have that foundation.
Go to superiorlovers.com to book a free consult call and get a free sample of Alex's work. You can also search him on YouTube by typing Alex Grendy to see more of his work for free over there. And also, I highly suspect he'll be back on this podcast because I loved talking to him. And as always, more on Alex in the show notes. Speaking of which, that's our show. Next week, I'll be officially full-term pregnant, meaning 37 weeks, meaning ready to have this baby at any time, something that I tearfully unpacked with shameless actor Shanola Hampton.
I really, really am. You're gonna be great.
Oh man, this conversation is really helpful, Shanola.
Oh, I'm so glad, babe. You are doing so great. Do you understand me?
I know, I'm so scared.
I know you are. I know. And I know you are, and you're scared is to help somebody else because you're gonna see that wasn't that scary.
So, come back to Lovers and Friends where we'll be talking about it. All of it.
Lovers and friends. I'ma take you on a trip, baby, I don't pretend. I said, lovers and friends. I'ma hold you down to the end. I said, lovers and friends. Lovers and friends. Yeah, I said, lovers and friends. I'ma hold you down.